Welcome to Smut and Sensibility,
a podcast for romance readers and romance writers.
By romance readers and writers.
We are Amber,
Allie,
and Marie,
a group of learned ladies who love talking about the romance genre.
In this podcast, we will talk about our favorite books, writing craft, and how we make room for a creative life in real time.
So buckle up and enjoy the ride. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Smut and Sensibility. Thank you all for being here. I'm Amber. I'm one of your hosts. I'm a corporate attorney by day and a romance reader and writer by night.
And I'm Allie. I am a doctor, writer, and after-hours academic studying English, local, and social history at Oxford. And we are so excited to welcome USA Bestselling author Denise Williams with us today. And we're going to be talking about her book, The Redo List, a little bit later in the show. Yay. Isn't she beautiful?
So beautiful. Look at this cover for those of you watching on YouTube. Oh, so gorgeous.
I know. I love the art on that cover. I love Gus. I have a lot of positive things to say about Gus, the little German Shepherd. But before we get into that, I wanted to transition into our book nook, where we all share a book that we have read and loved lately. So I read Female Fantasy by Iman Hariri Kia, and this book was so fun. It was basically like a love letter to romance readers, and I definitely recommend it. The blurb for this book is Junie is living a fantasy, at least that's what people keep telling her. She's a copywriter by day and a fanfic amateur by night, and she continues to date and dump disappointing men in search of her happily ever after. But every potential suitor seems to have one flaw in common. They can't hold a candle to her book boyfriend, Reich, the protagonist in her favorite fantasy romance series and notably Sexy Merman. Reich is a symbol for the life Junie craves and the kind of relationship she deserves. So with a book always in her back pocket, why would she ever want to settle for less? But when Junie learns that Reich's character is based on someone the author knows in real life, she embarks on an epic quest to track him down, meet him in person, and determine once and for all if soulmates really do exist. Unfortunately, her brother's annoying best friend, it's always a brother's annoying best friend.
We love a brother's best friend.
Today, yeah. Who doesn't believe in love or happy endings, insists on hitching a ride. And like any great hero's journey, it doesn't take long for the trials and tribulations to begin. As Junie fights her way towards her love interest, using the skills she acquired through reading, she'll learn an important lesson. You can pursue a fantasy, but you can't always write your own plot. And so this was just really fun. The author really kept me guessing as far as like some really exciting, fun, action-y plot that I wasn't expecting. And I think it was also just, like I said, it was a love letter to romance readers. You get sort of like a dual story kind of romantasy book that is in this book is called A Tale of Saltwater and Secrets, and it's Under the Sea, it's Myrrh, and it was just a really fun kind of 2-for-1. I did the audio on this, and Samantha Brentmore is the narrator, and she did an absolutely fantastic job. There were so many voices that she had to do because we had the romantasy characters and then we had the actual hero and heroine for like the contemporary plot, and they were all different and very dynamic and very good. So 10 out of 10 would recommend.
I'm always impressed when there's like a story within a story.
Yes.
You know,
it reminded me a lot of Olivia Dade's The Spoiler Alert series.
Oh, really? I haven't read this one, but I loved that series by Olivia Dade.
Yeah, I think I only read the first one and the third one maybe, but anyway, it's that same element of a fantasy thick world within the contemporary story.
Yeah.
And like,
yeah,
it was
just
relate
really fun
to wanting the book boyfriends to be in real life.
Right.
I know.
Perfect premise. So exciting.
Well, one I've been
Denise.
talking about a lot lately is Love and Sports Ball by Mika James. I read this one. I'm cheating a little bit because I read it maybe about a month ago.
That's okay.
It's a sapphic romance. It's a Black romance. It's set in professional basketball. The one main character is a player and the other is an athletic trainer. And so, of course, it's forbidden, but it's very hot and very soft. And I don't feel like we get that intersection as often in just sort of the contemporary romance field. And so there was plot, there was conflict, there was drive and all of this, but it felt very cozy and very soft and just like fan yourself hot. And so I loved it. I laughed out loud, like I was crying. I also listened to the audio. I can't remember off the top of my head who the narrators were, but just a really great read and like really drew me in. And I actually was being interviewed and asked, "What's a book you're loving?" And I think I was like 30 pages in, and I was already like, "This is my top book of the month. I already know."
I've already decided it's
Yeah.
that good.
So it was that good. It was excellent. I've read a few others that have just been, it's been a really good like reading month and a half.
I agree.
Feels good.
And sometimes it's not. And I feel like there's been some hits that have been out lately.
Yeah, I've read some great ones and some older ones that I had kind of been sleeping on that I hadn't picked up yet. And yeah, who knows what February is going to bring.
And the TBR list, right? There's always too many books, but in the best way.
Yes. I have
You
a
know, going
bunch
back
of
to,
art.
oh shoot, I meant to read that one. And then it's like another month goes by. So it's kind of fun to go back to.
And that's a great one, Denise, too, because we're getting into March Madness. And so that's a great basketball story that, you know, people could read in March and get ready.
Yeah, I mean, the season's on now, so it's a good time for basketball.
Exactly.
Well, I read Accidentally Yours by Christina Lauren. This was an Amazon Original Stories, and they called it the Improbably Meet Cute Second Chances. So it was a 6-story short collection. So the other titles and authors in this collection were Time Will Tell by Hannah Bonham Young, Second Act Romance by Julie Soto, A Play for Love by Trelina Pucci, Death to Valentine's Day by Catherine Cowles, and Valentine's Sleigh by Nevessa Allen. I listened to it via audio, and this is in Kindle Unlimited series, so it's free to read and to listen. I think Amazon does this like once or twice a year where they put in together like their little anthology, and this one came out just before Valentine's, so it's very like sweet romance themed. And so I'll just let you know the little summary here. Serendipity works wonders for a woman and her seemingly unattainable crush in a funny and flirty short story. When marketing consultant Veronica accidentally crashes the wrong Zoom meeting and brutally critiques their presentation, she's shocked to receive a job offer from the company's intriguing CEO. Their professional email exchanges quickly turn flirty, but Veronica's mind keeps drifting to her reserved but gorgeous new neighbor. As Valentine's Day approaches, she'll discover that sometimes the most improbable meet cute can lead to the perfect match. This was just a delightful and fun listen. It had a lot of humor and witty banter. It was a lighter romance, but like the yearning and the crushing the characters have on each other through their email exchange was just really quite delicious. And she has conversations with her boss over email, but like freezes up when she sees her hot neighbor upstairs. So she's kind of learning to flirt with her boss via email that's harmless until he asks her out. I binged this because it was a short story, but what I really particularly liked about this take on the workplace romance is that Jude technically isn't her boss in a traditional sense. He's her client. She's an independent contractor, and there isn't that problematic power imbalance that sometimes can arise with this trope, at least in my opinion, because she isn't traditionally his employee. It was just really cute and swoony. So if you're just kind of looking for something to escape that doesn't take much because it's short, I would highly recommend. And again, the audio was really good.
I'll have to add that because I do have Kindle Unlimited.
Yeah.
Let's get into our craft corner. Like we said, we are very excited to have USA bestselling author Denise Williams. You've been busy the last couple of years, Denise. We've got lots of titles to read.
I know.
Yeah,
I can't
I've been
believe your
busy.
first one came out like just around COVID. Like you'll have to share your tips and tricks and secrets.
Yeah.
Because like, dang, you've been busy.
You have been very busy.
Okay, so again, Denise, thank you so much for coming on today.
Thanks for having me.
So we're excited to have USA Today bestselling author Denise Williams on the podcast. Denise is the author of many contemporary romance novels, including How to Fail at Flirting, The Fastest Way to Fall, Do You Take This Man, Even If the Sky is Falling, Love and Other Flight Delays, Technically Yours, Just Our Luck, and the recently released The Redo List, which we're so excited to talk about today. Denise wrote her first book in the 2nd grade, I Hate You, and its sequel, I Still Hate You, aptly named Denise. I love it. Featured a tough and funny heroine, a quirky hero, witty banter, and a dragon. Minus the dragons, these are still the books she likes to write. After penning those early works, she finished 2nd grade and eventually earned a PhD. After growing up a military brat around the world and across the country, Denise now lives in Iowa with her husband, son, and an ornery Shih Tzu who only enters the room walking backwards. I feel like we need video of this, Denise, as a side
There
note.
used to be a TikTok video of it because she would do it kind of to the beat of Back That Ass Up.
Oh my God. Iconic.
But I took my
Oh my
TikTok
God.
out, so I don't know. I don't know if that still exists somewhere.
We'll have to
my
go
God.
digging. Since debuting during lockdown, Denise has released her 11th book. You heard that right, everyone. 11th book since lockdown. The redo
Ma'am.
list. I don't know how you do it. I'm so impressed. Besides writing, she can usually be found reading or thinking about love stories. So again, welcome, Denise.
Thank you.
Yay, welcome, Denise.
My local bookstore
Oh my gosh.
told me, Dog-Eared Books here in Ames, that I need to change my bio because they can just read it from memory now. And I was like, yeah, but when it stops getting a laugh, then I'll rewrite it.
It's so good though. Yeah, like just don't mess with perfection.
I don't know if I can tell a joke that well again.
The redo list, as we mentioned, is your most recent release, and it is available everywhere now. And we have some really great tropes in here. And I had alluded to earlier, brother's best friend. We also have a sexy to-do list and kind of like a sex lessons trope, which is, I mean, top tier. There is an age gap. And I also really love kind of like the self-rediscovery trope too. I thought that was a really good twist on that. And so I wanted to kind of read the little blurb for the back cover copy. Willow experienced all of her big firsts with her high school sweetheart. Now, reeling from her very public breakup, she wants to get a redo on the most important moments. While dog sitting for her brother during his deployment, she has a chance to start over, and spending time with his best friend gives her the confidence to start checking off items on her redo list. Deacon promised his best friend two things when Cruz left for deployment: that he'd look out for Willow and that he'd keep his hands off of Cruz's baby sister. It always goes like that, right? Operation Redo is innocent enough at first. Deacon likes Willow and he's willing to help her out any way that he can. But when the list of firsts turns from a first dance to first kisses and more, Deacon can't deny the connection he feels to Willow. As Deacon and Willow's firsts turn into seconds, thirds, and fourths, this pair can't get enough of each other. And they support each other through all of their new challenges. But they are both aware that there's an end date to Willow's time in town. Even if she were to stay, Deacon doesn't know how to choose between his loyalty to his closest friend and the woman he's fallen in love with. With no more romantic moments on her list for them to redo, can these two still find a way forward together? Love it.
So good. Denise, how did you come up with the idea of this book? Was it like the characters first? Was it like a scene premise? We're always interested, like, how did you come up and decide to write this particular book?
It's kind of different for every book, but this book, it was actually the premise came to me first. And initially, this book was actually a fairly different book. It started out with a woman who was recently divorced, and the Deacon character wasn't her brother's best friend, it was her ex's brother. And so a little more like, conflict. So we switched up a little bit as the book evolved. But I loved that idea of your firsts. And, so for so many of us, our firsts, sexy first, romantic first, professional first, like they feel significant and they feel like they've shaped our trajectory, even though sometimes they were not great, or, we had a different trajectory, we moved around. But that idea that your firsts really shape who you become, and all those experiences feed into who you are now. And I thought the idea of playing with that was a lot of fun. And so that's where the premise for this came up from. And I actually jotted down this initial idea maybe like 3 or 4 years ago. It's been sitting in the queue for a while.
Yeah.
And as it came time, like, okay, it's time to look at the next book. And I loved the Deacon character who was in Just Our Luck. And I wanted to tell a story for him. And I was thinking through like, new ideas or what are ideas I had. And then as I started piecing who I found him to be with kind of who I'd originated Willow to be, I was like, okay, like this is kind of coming together, and it changed up the story, but I really like where it ended up. But it really did start with just that first nugget of thinking about firsts.
I love that. And even though it is a standalone, I personally like when it's like a side character from a previous book, because you feel like, they're getting their story, or like kind of some of the background from the other book. Not that you need it, but so I always think that's really fun.
I love that as a reader. And my first 4 books are all in the same universe. My next 3, the airport novellas, are all in the same universe. These ones are in the same universe. And so for me as a reader, I'm like, Easter egg, I get to see it.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
But also from
my friends are back. Yes.
from a craft perspective, when I'm writing side characters, I don't do like character sheets or lists or anything like that. I just think through what would this person's love story be. And I think that always comes down to who are they and what kind of thing would challenge them and what baggage are they carrying with them? What's their goal? Even if none of that makes it into the original book, like I just sort of think through that as I'm writing a side character. And so then when it's time to write the next book, I always want to write another one with the side character because I already sort of love them. And Deacon is a character I loved when I was writing Just Our Luck. And he's maybe one of my favorite male main characters I've written just because there's so much to him, which we can get into. But I was excited to sort of pull that energy into telling more of his story.
Yeah, I love that question for characters. A lot of times we think of like the physical features and a lot of like the resume stuff, right? Where that's more like intrinsic experiences. So then you like hear their voice more, or it would make more sense. Like what would they do, what their challenges would be. I think I'm definitely going to steal that. I love that, Denise.
Yes, do, because it's so much fun. And then you have all these great love stories in your head. And I write, I don't, in this book, not as much, but in most books I have like grandparents or great uncles or folks who are maybe elderly who bring like just this interesting dynamic to the character. And I always think like, oh, what was their love story? What's their next love story? Like,
and, you know, I know you said Deacon's one of your favorites. I love Deacon from the very beginning. And I even got my roommate to read this book. I'm like, you just need to read it. So she says she loved it. She was like staying up past her bedtime. And she was like, are they going to get together yet? I'm like, keep reading. And she was like, it was worth it. The wait was worth it. So
it's
Katie,
definitely
my
a slow burn.
roommate,
So you got to get
also
there.
now a very big fan of Deacon, the book.
When I did my PhD, what my research was actually on student veterans. And so folks leaving the military and coming into an academic environment. And I studied four-year institutions, private, public, small, large, community colleges. And so that's my academic research. Like I've written books on that. I published articles on that. I've done research projects on that. And so it was also really cool to get to pull some of that knowledge and understanding and perspective into my romance world where there's less statistics into my academic piece where there's less kissing. So it was, a lovely kind of next.
Yes.
I love that you combined both. Like, I don't need to choose. I can be really smart and badass and then put that also in my kissing books.
Well,
we don't have to choose here.
It's romance. Why choose?
Exactly.
That's exactly right. Why choose?
Why
we don't
choose?
have to. Oh my gosh, I love that. Who was your favorite character to write? And I'm going to guess maybe Deacon based on what you said, but I don't know.
My favorite character to write, well, I probably had the most fun writing Deacon, like because he has such I gave him the last name Rakes, which was not that creative, but like he's a former playboy, like he is the life of the party. So he was fun to write because there's a lot of fun to him. But I had a lot of fun then when you get into the vulnerabilities and the history and the emotion that's underneath that. But I think actually Willow felt maybe more empowering to write because she is on this journey that I think so many of us have been on in different contexts of refinding our footing after a change. And so like to write her journey and take her from wearing muted colors to wearing a red dress and all these different things that she experiences, like to me, even as I re-listened to the audiobook recently, I was like, that's the one I feel more powerful about. But Deacon tells a lot of dick jokes and that's inherently fun.
And we love the dick jokes.
And that's his journey
Denise.
and we love him for it. Yeah.
He's so endearing for the dick jokes. Which usually isn't two things you put together, but you made Deacon's dick jokes endearing and we loved them.
Yes.
I'm just going to quote you on that. I'll put that on a marketing flag. Like you made
Please do.
And I think you did such a good job with Deacon because he is a reformed rake, but like he wasn't ever an asshole. Because I think sometimes those two things can kind of get smushed together. And he was not an asshole. He had a good time. He was obviously working through his own stuff and he had his own, like, I think also really empowering character arc through the story, but he wasn't an ass. He wasn't an ass to anybody. And I really liked that because I don't feel like we often see that.
Yeah, there's a line I was talking with somebody about this and there's a line in the book that I love and I don't really remember writing it and I kind of had forgotten I wrote it, but when I was re-listening, I heard it. And he's talking about like, women he'd been with or women who were trying to get with him in the moment with Willow. And she says like, so they weren't special. And he's like, no, they're incredibly special. They're beautiful and they're smart and lists all their attributes. And then just goes on to say, but what was between us wasn't special. And I wrote it better in the book than what I'm repeating now. But that line, I think, is very much him, that he values women, he values relationships, he values his partners. He just doesn't think he is somebody who's going to have a partner or a relationship.
Yeah, like a monogamous long-term relationship.
Yeah. But I thought I tried to make sure that he was still showing respect for women and for, like, you know, these people he'd spent time with, even though he is in this rake role and the playboy. And
I think you did an excellent job. It showed through, like Allie said, that like he never came off as an asshole. And like, yeah, he had sexual experiences, but you know, your own body, if two partners are consenting and having a good time and there's respect there, there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. And I think, you know, sex and morality, right, are oftentimes associated, and they don't need to be, and they shouldn't necessarily be. Yeah. And so I think he was a really good person. And I think you did a great job being like, you can have sex and have fun and be respectful and also a good person. And like, that's not often in popular media. So I thought that was great.
And thank you for doing that for us.
Yes. Thank you for doing that for us.
Well, and I think the morality thing is interesting with the brother's best friend trope, because I stayed away from that trope for a long time, because I hate when it's written as this is a conflict because my brother is in charge of my lady business. And that's not what I wanted here. And really, I think if for those who haven't read the book yet, like the conflict with the brother being in the picture is really more from Deacon than Willow. Like she sees it, it's an issue, but it's a bigger stumbling block for him because he feels like he's letting down his best friend. And so I like that the sibling relationship was really more an issue for the men and not so much the woman felt controlled or beholden. And I think I loved that. And I wasn't sure how that would turn out when I started writing, but I'm really happy it did, because that's, for me, a more interesting brother's best friend story than, you know,
don't touch my sister.
Yeah,
she's
my brother is in
she
charge
needs
of
to
my
be
virtue.
chased, and like little sister in the corner.
I think there's even a line where Deacon says, like, I know Cruz doesn't care who she dates as long as she doesn't date me.
Right.
Yeah. Didn't Nikki Payne write like a Substack about like your brother doesn't own your pussy or something like that? I think
she did. And I was like, Nikki, my brother's best friend book comes out in 3 days. What are you doing?
How rude, Nikki. Like, but again, we talked about it. It's different, right? Like what Nikki was writing in her Substack is what you so craftfully avoided.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I felt good about that. I thought that part turned out well. And I loved writing the brother. I would love to write a love story for him and his love interest.
We need it. I need to know what happens.
I would love a love story for Cruz. Especially at the end, I was just like, okay, I'm ready. I'm ready for him to find his person.
And he needs it. He deserves it.
Maybe I'll write sometimes I write like freebie bonus stories for my books. And Cruz's book might be one of those, because I don't know if I have enough for a full book, but I have a lot of ideas.
Or at least promise us you put it in the parking lot. Like it'll be at least always there on the side as maybe an option.
Oh, yeah.
Even for like a novella.
I just wait till I'm on deadline with something Berkeley's paying me to write. And then I'm like, I've got an idea to write something for free.
Isn't that what always comes?
This immediately needs my attention.
Exactly. What was like a challenge in this book, or like what was the most challenging part about writing this book? Or was it really easy to write?
No, I would say there were definitely some challenges in writing this book. We had my work with an editor and her editorial assistant came on one of the levels of editing and served as sort of a youth consultant, which is when I learned that I do not naturally write a 24-year-old.
Amazing.
Surprise.
Probably just, fair.
Was it humbling? You're like, I'm sorry, who are you
like,
sending
no,
me?
people wouldn't text like that. And I was like, well, I think they will. They're old souls. I'm a millennial.
Us too.
No, but I think getting into the head of somebody who was 24 and at that stage of life definitely took like a little bit of like cognitive shifting, just because that's not at the stage of life that I'm in and I haven't been there for a while. And so trying to do like due diligence to that character's growth and what would be important to her and what would be the question marks in her life. And I think that that's always a challenge. And also I've written my last several women main characters have been pretty self-possessed, pretty confident, varying degrees of in their career or not, but they've had pretty firm stance, shoulders back, ready to take the world in different ways. And Willow is a different character. And so I've spent a lot of my day job career like helping women to make that jump and find those spaces for themselves. So that was a challenge too. And then, release happened, drafting happened, and 2024, 2025, 2026, and the world often feels like it is burning down, and sometimes it's actually burning down. And so,
Yeah.
there's just a lot of competing, I think, for me and for readers and for publishing professionals. Like, there's just a lot of things that are competing for your attention. So in some ways, romance is this perfect escape into it. But sometimes I think it takes a little work to get in the headspace to take a deep breath and say, okay, everything is going to be all right in this fictional world I've created, and let's go.
I was just thinking what we just talked about, how you said the world is on fire, but yet you need to show up for your job and your kid and your husband and, the publishing contracts you have, and then actually feeling like you're in that creative good space to get into the world. It's, talk about a juggling act.
It is a juggling act. And, honestly, I used to talk about this when I ran this program, and I didn't write this. It's a quote I heard from somebody. But you're never truly like balance. I think balance is a myth. It doesn't exist. You're just juggling at all times. And the trick is learning which balls are glass and which are plastic at any given moment. And sometimes your writing is glass and sometimes it's plastic. And sometimes your kids are glass and sometimes they're plastic. They'll bounce. All of those things. It's just that idea of juggling. But writing for me is still a lovely escape. And I travel a lot for work. So it's something I can do when I'm traveling and kind of just sink into these sexy fictional people, which is a lot of fun.
Yeah. And make them kiss for us.
Yes. So you're still working full time, Denise?
I do work full time. Yeah. I've
oh my gosh.
I used to work with students when I first started writing, and I don't do that anymore, but
gotcha.
I work full time, and I don't really have any plans to stop doing that. I really love my job and I love the office space I'm in, and I feel like it kind of feeds me. But my colleagues have always been super supportive of the book, and come to my events. And they're always thanking my acknowledgments, my different colleagues, and reading the books and cheering about them. And so that is a cool place to be in.
That's wonderful.
I feel like for jobs, it's always like twofold. Like, you want to enjoy the work, the actual substance you're doing, but also colleagues and your actual like boss who's managing you can also make or break. So when you find the like golden nugget of both, you're like, oh, this is what it's supposed to feel like to just like come and use my expertise and my knowledge and my education and like show up and not dread it completely every day. How wonderful.
Really lucky in my work world to mostly have had those experiences, and that's what I have now. So yeah, I still work full time. I have a young son. He's not as young anymore. He's 9 now. But it keeps things busy.
Absolutely. My goodness.
We've discussed previously on the podcast the idea of the id list, and I think I've heard you talk about the id list before. So you are familiar with the id list, correct? Yeah. Were there any items from your personal id list that you put in this book that you can remember, and if what they were?
Yeah,
You're like so many.
I described this book to somebody as my id book. Like, there are so many just little micro tropes and little moments and things that to me are just lovely, and that is why they're in the book. And sometimes I think my editor was probably like, plot wise, does this need to be here? And I was like, yes. Brings me joy.
For me, it does.
For me.
So I love weddings. I'm an ordained officiant. I have been doing that for maybe 15 and almost 20 years, maybe. I wrote a whole book about it. I love weddings. And so most of my characters and most of my books go to a wedding. Like, there is a wedding mentioned in some way, shape, or form. I love the idea of the dancing at the wedding and the being in a space of love and just the energy of it. And that just brings me joy. And so I love to put my characters in that situation. And so that's in there. They watch a sunset, which is this really, I think, sweet moment of care between the two characters in this book. And I just think sunsets and sunrises are sort of magical. And so I love kind of giving characters that moment of the light coming on, and I can just picture that. I'm trying to think of, there's so many in this book, like including the dogs was an id piece because I love dogs and I think they bring so much great energy. And Gus, the dog, was super fun to write, as well as Cupcake, the old grumpy dog.
Oh my gosh.
Because she would have been sleeping through it. Gosh, I'm trying to think of others. There's just a lot of kind of the small moments, like the small touches, the taking care of each other. Like, I think there's a lot of caretaking between these two.
I love
whether
that.
Like emotional caretaking or actually like I'm putting a Band-Aid on there. And those were kind of some pieces. There's some great bromance moments between Deacon, the main character, and then Cruz, the brother who is deployed, that for me felt very authentic to folks I know who are in the military or were in the military, but also just showing kind of men's friendships existing in mostly non-toxic ways.
Yeah.
I Personally, I love animals in stories, and I think Gus just had such a fantastic personality. So that I love that he was one of your id items because he was just delightful. And I wish that my border collie could be as well trained as Gus
Oh my
because
God.
he tries, but Gus was just supreme level of training that I'm not the primary human. My husband, that's who my dog listens to. So I struggle a little bit sometimes with him.
I also thought the same, where I was like, my dog is not as well behaved as Gus.
Oh, mine
Yeah.
isn't either. My dad actually is an awesome dog trainer, and his dogs are always pretty well trained. Maybe not quite to the level of Gus, but like very well trained. And I sort of love that Deacon's dog, who he adopted, is named Cupcake, and she's sort of a
That's perfect.
fuck it is the new hustle sort of dog. And he's like, yeah, we learned to sit and eat, and then we kind of called it good. Whereas Gus could do your taxes for you. So I thought he was
Seriously,
a fun character to have.
The opposite, and then when they do the play dates
Yes.
with them
Oh my God,
too.
yes.
Like, I loved that too. I was
was
like
so
putting
good.
them together.
There's a lot of dog love, and I don't usually put pets in books just because then you have to care for the pet in the book. But I've
You can't let
had
them
a
die.
cat in Technical Yours, and now I've had the dog here, and there was a dog in The Misconnection, which is one of my airport novellas, and I'm like, well, maybe I need some more dogs.
Yeah, no, I loved it. We wanted to share some quotes that we loved from the book, so we're going to call this the id interlude.
Ooh,
I came
I
up with
love
that
it.
pun. I'm very
You like
proud of
it?
myself. Thank you.
I will get us started. So this one's in chapter 1, right early. I would have fled if I wasn't meeting a man my brother had described as tall white guy who looks equally likely to rescue you from a burning building as to offer you pot. Not only did I find that so funny and hilarious, but I love how you described him. And I immediately had like a visual without doing the typical like tall, dark hair, broad shoulder, green eyes. I love that. And it just like immediately my mind filled that in. So
I love that because if there's a note I'm going to get from my editor on every book, it's, can we describe this character more? Because I don't describe my characters very much. Because as a reader, I want to sort of picture who I want to picture.
yeah.
And so
Right.
you might get some detail on the genitals and some broad shoulders, but I don't actually describe my characters very much for that very reason. So I love that.
Well, your
description
editor is
fits.
not going to like me as I'm like more of this.
Yes.
I love this.
No, I'm going to quote it.
Another one.
Okay, so this is in chapter 1, and this is when Willow is talking to her best friend Zoe. And I was dying at this line. And I coughed, nearly choking on my drink. Please don't send my brother nudes, but it's for America.
I do love that line.
That one was so good. And then they're continuing their conversation, and just this is such classic like best friend banter. Willow is saying his neck might be bigger than my thigh. And she says, you'll have to compare them side by side when his head is between your, and then it was delightful friend banter, and I loved it.
I do love a best friend. That's another id thing to me, is I want my character to have a best friend because, like the best friend says stuff to us in a way that's so different than anybody else says something to us.
Yes.
Serious or
You almost
not.
have your own language too, which is nice.
Yeah. And you only actually meet Zoe in person, I think, one scene. She's at home, and Willow is in Iowa. And so she's mostly a text and quick phone call friend. And so I'd love to write her story too, because I had a lot of fun really with all these side characters.
Well, good thing you
Yeah.
had that youth consultant for all those text exchanges.
That's right.
I didn't always listen, but
Okay, next one is in chapter 3. And then this is Deacon. This is from Willow's perspective. He ignored my apology. His intense attention still focused on me. You don't know who you are when you're not a part of that thing that you thought defined you. And I just that spoke to me so much that like in points of my life that I could relate to that. And I also think that like they're both going through that in their own character art. So that really spoke to me.
I do love that line. And when I was writing this, I had recently left a job and a career I'd been in for 20 years that I kind of thought would be my forever career. And I switched to something else because of a lot of factors. And so I was really feeling that, like, if I'm not a teacher anymore, if I'm not in this space, who am I?
Yeah.
Like, is the new me an
Right.
authentic version of me? And Deacon, I think this was in the blurb, but has recently left the Air Force and like a very specialized unit because of an injury, and really has not come to terms with what that means for him and his career and his identity.
And it's so hard too, I think, in a good or a bad way. I think it's more culturally in like United States that our identities are tied a lot to our vocation.
Yeah.
So that interesting perspective too on like something like what Deacon does, it is definitely not the average job where like you are sacrificing literally blood, sweat, tears, years, experiences, not being near family. So when that all of a sudden all that sacrifice is like away, that has to be like, such a hard juxtaposition and like now what, you know?
Yeah.
So.
And I think for him, as with many people in the military, but I think in other sort of community-based careers as well, it's the thing you did and the job, but it's the people you were with, right? The community you found with, and I see that in academia and in writing spaces sometimes too, you know, like it's the people you were with and the what you got back from them. So again, that's my whole, I could write a whole dissertation on that, and I already did, so I won't like
and maybe just send it to us on the slide.
Yeah.
Side reading, because
I do get my library, because I work at the same institution I graduated from, and so they send me an email like once a month that gives you your readership for your dissertation.
Every time
so
you're like, yay, someone read my dissertation.
It's 10 years old. People shouldn't be citing it that much anymore. There's new research. But like the number of reads is like 1 day's worth of how to fail at flirting for a whole month.
Oh my God, I love it. I have another quote, and we are kind of like building the relationship with Willow and Deacon, and they're feeling the feels, and it's in chapter 19. And Willow had just like sniffed Deacon, and she said, I felt his chin on the top of my head. He was wrong. This wasn't nothing. This felt like everything. It was just so sweet, and they have such a sweet relationship. I think there was a lot of care there, and it was just really lovely. I really enjoyed their love story, and you know they're finding themselves again. And I loved how you had them both starting over. You know, they're starting over sort of together and helping each other like along that journey, finding their new purpose, their new job, their, you know, new whatever, and then a new relationship.
Yeah, I think so. And that scene, I think that line is from when they're watching the sunrise together, and he had just gotten out of the pool, and so she's smelling him, and then he smells her, and she's like, I haven't showered yet. So I do like that those sweet moments can always come back to like sort of the funny moments too, and that's sort of how their friendship grows. But that is based on I live in Des Moines, and that's based on a real spot in Des Moines. It's not a hotel I have ever actually broken into, but they do have like that rooftop bar where you can see that view. And that was something I really loved too, is just, the book is set in Des Moines where I live, as was Just Our Luck, and being able to write about my town, because you don't get romance novels set in Iowa that aren't rural. And those communities exist, but I'm like, there's cities here, there's Black people here, there are views of cities. Like you can get on an interstate and stay in the city and stay in a town and go to Target, and we have stoplights.
It's not all middle of nowhere cornfields, people.
Those exist, and that's lovely. And you don't have to drive that far to get to it. But I did love
there's still more.
setting it in my town.
All right, the next one. This is a line that Deacon said that made me laugh out loud. It's fucking freezing, but I'm doing that boy thing where I hide my shivers so you can see me as virile and invincible. He like gives her his. I thought that was so funny.
I loved that. And then this one is also from in Deacon's chapter. And I wanted to experience everything I wanted, but I was too afraid to ask or didn't feel I deserved. And I think that like we've all probably been there, you know, at some point or another. I thought that was like a really introspective moment. And like I said, you did a really good job making both Deacon and Willow like very likable throughout the whole book.
I mean, this is sort of like listening to the audiobook. I'm like hearing you say my words back to me, and sometimes I'm like, dang, that's pretty good. I don't remember writing
You're
that.
like, hey, maybe I am really good at this.
I'm kind of good at this.
It's almost like I'm a professional or something.
Almost. Or I have great editors. A little bit of both.
We saved the best quote for last. Allie and I were dying about this. And Denise, I think you also said in the past that you really like this quote. So she hopped off the bed and picked up the bag from where it had fallen on the floor. Condoms, jelly beans, and icy hot. Devil's three-way, I muttered, and Willow laughed.
That is my favorite joke in the whole book. I think I mentioned that.
It was
so good.
Dang good.
It's just such a throwaway joke and such a Deacon thing to say, but it is deeply my favorite joke in the whole book.
But also I feel like that is very realistic of like a dude going to the pharmacy and then like, oh yeah, my shoulder hurt. And and those jelly beans look good. Like, ooh, the Starburst ones, like throw them in.
Yeah.
You know?
I would do that.
Yeah. I mean, who wouldn't like a little like snack? afterward.
My God. Yeah, no, I loved that line. Amber and I both laughed out loud with that.
Oh, that makes me
'cause
so
it was
happy.
just,
I was like, that's in there because I think it's funny, and that's why it stayed in there.
no, I loved it.
Did you have to
and
fight for it? Was it ever meant? Okay, great. I'm glad that everybody was like, yeah, that's got
good.
to stay.
I'm glad everybody was on board. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know that I've ever had to cut a joke like that I really liked. My editor and I are usually on the same wavelength of the humor of the characters.
Well, that's good.
I love that. Your books have such a great example of strong internal conflict and satisfying character arcs. I know you talked a little bit about like the romantic histories, but is there anything else that you do in your character development process that really helps you hone in, especially on like your main characters?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's consistent for every character, but I'm a researcher by training. And so my first thing is to go into research mode. And Willow, for a lot of reasons, to me came more naturally. Like I had to shave off some decades from my own experience, but generally like her experiences felt pretty natural to me. But Deacon, while I got a sense of him, I did a ton of research on first figuring out what injury would have made him leave the military and how did I want him to move through the world with that. And then looked at what kind of unit would he be in that would give him his community that he wouldn't be able to do with this in those sorts of things. And so the unit I put him in is a real unit. It's the pararescue jumpers in the Air Force. And I also didn't want a sort of battle forward group. So this group is charged with rescue and recovery for the Department of Defense. And so they go through extensive like physical training, but extensive medical training. They could go behind enemy lines to get people out, go maybe if civilians are stuck in the ocean or in a mountain, they could be sent out to do that. So that took a lot of research, both to look at what would his experience be, but how might that shape who he is as a person? Because only like 5% of people make it through that process. It's a really small number,
insane.
Really rigorous training.
Wow.
And a lot of physical demands. And so what would that say about his character in terms of making him a playboy and the comic relief, but also somebody who is intensely driven? And so for Deacon, I think a lot of that research helped shape how I wanted to form him. And also I think within that, this wasn't research, it was just thinking how the character comes together. But I always try to think about, especially I write a lot of interracial romance, like if I'm writing a white man, how do I make this man a self-aware, good citizen? And I think for a lot of people with the military, they see a lot of dissonance there. And I think I just have Deacon see that same dissonance to be like, yeah, the military is not a perfect place. It's far from it. And here are some of the issues. And here is what I didn't like about what we did. But here's what I did like. I don't ever give them answers, but especially when I'm writing white men who are with women of color, I try to make them the greenest flags that I can. And to me, that's really important as I'm shaping those characters. And I think Deacon has a few moments where you see like, you know, even him and his buddy talking about why were there no women in our unit? Like, that's fucked up.
Yeah.
Because there aren't, as far as the research I
Yeah.
can tell. Maybe there are now, but when I was doing the research, there weren't. So some of those pieces. But a lot of that goes into it. And I try to have some of that research shape how their personality comes up. And then, of course, it's iterations of editing and making them consistent and figuring out how they need to challenge the other person and be challenged. And so I think if I had more... Since I'm a researcher, that's how I come at it. If I was trained as a fiction writer, I'd probably have a much more efficient process. But
Do you feel like you go down the rabbit hole too far and you're like, I need to get back to the original? Or do you have a good balance? Because I know Allie and I talk about sometimes that we're like, okay, you've gone too far. Like it has been too much time. You need to get back to actually writing words.
Yeah.
Like you need to like
something
circle
in the
back.
book and you're like, that was an odd thing to throw in. It's probably because I fell down a rabbit hole and I felt like, I know about this thing now and I need you to know
all
about
do
this thing
too.
now.
But
But
it's
I
so
wanna
fun to fall down the research rabbit hole.
I want to be
It is the
thorough,
best
like
feeling.
in knowing the world that these people were in. And so in The Misconnections, was another one of my airport novella books. They're both chemists. And the last time I took chemistry was when I dropped it after getting a 33% on a Chem 1 midterm in college.
Oh my gosh, Denise, that makes my heart so happy. Not that happened to you, but I also am not a chemistry fan. I remember hating it and being like, are we over? And Dr. Allie over here is like, oh, you poor girls.
I
thought
hated
it was
chemistry too.
interesting, but
It was a necessary evil.
But
Yeah.
I wanted to write these chemistry professors authentically. And so I met with like an author who is a chemistry professor. I had like 19 journal articles open on catalytic chemistry. I think I maybe subscribed to their
Incredible.
newsletter still. And it's truly for like 3 jokes that 7 people will understand. But to me,
They appreciated it.
There is a joke about P-level that is maybe the best dick joke I've ever made for the nerds in the room. And so
look at Allie. She's
that
like,
in
oh
that
my
book.
God.
But
clutching her pearls.
Yeah, so that's where a lot of the character development comes from. I don't base them on real people. I don't usually pull from like sometimes some like archetypes, but I don't heavily draw from that. I just try to write them as people who feel believable to me. And then as you go back through, there's some of that refining.
I think, not to, keep talking about Deacon again and how much we love him, but I do really feel, I do really feel, just when you were talking about like how you like did all of this research, and that makes so much sense, because one of the things that I really noticed about Deacon, and I think one of the reasons that I really liked him, is like it was very clear that like service was something really important to him. And I think that that was also the root of his conflict with Cruz, and like why, dating Willow was a problem. It was because like that's his best friend, and that was like his directive, and like he wanted to make sure that like Cruz was as comfortable as possible, and like that deep need to take care and serve people, which is evident in his job as a PJ. Like, I mean, I think you did a fantastic job like making that a core part of his personality and shape it.
I did love the idea of writing a playboy and just kind of a fuckboy too. Like, that kind of guy. His ethic of care really was, his ethic of kindness was care. And so it was care for other people. And you see that with him and his roommates. And he really appreciates like care being given to him. And I wrote just a little bit about his childhood. He didn't have a lot of connections. And so Cruz and his unit when he started was the first time he had that like close-knit family. And so again, I loved writing the guys and just those short little, you never see them really like in battle, but not much. Like it's mostly like those moments in the barracks or when you're waiting for these,
those shooting the shit
moments. Yeah.
And it's always good when a romance hero, his active service is orgasms too. I mean, that's also
it doesn't hurt.
Fun. Yeah, he's a real good giver of those. He's solid.
Yeah.
He at one point gives Willow the gift of a bottle of lube, and she's telling her best friend about it. And she's like, "That's the best gift anyone's ever given anybody." Like,
yeah.
He knows what he's doing. Green flag.
He is
green flag. That's right.
He's competent.
The little green flag guy on the internet is like waving every time for Deacon.
Obviously, you learned a lot about PJs, and like you said, you do a ton of research. But like, what did this book teach you? Maybe from like a craft perspective, from maybe like a personal perspective, because I feel like every process is different.
Yeah. I did learn a lot about the PJs, and now people think I want to be a PJ, so I still get weird targeted ads.
You're like, no, thank you.
I'm like, you clearly don't have a camera on me, because nothing about this body says I do a push-up. But so I did learn that. From a craft perspective, I don't know that I learned something outright from the writing. I think it was more from the editing. I am a classic overwriter. It comes from doing the research and falling down the rabbit holes. I love a friends to lovers story when you get to show the full relationship from those early buds, like as it develops. But sometimes that slows down a plot too. So I think to me, that's just an ever-growing thing of figuring out how I write that full relationship and then how I edit it down so you really get the pieces that are meaningful versus seeing every silly joke. There were many that got cut just because they didn't need to be there. I'm trying to think if there's other pieces. Willow's journey and like a lot of the pieces she goes through are not things I learned with this book, but they're in this book because I learned them. And those are just tools that I have employed and that I've helped other people employ in terms of how you learn to trust your gut and your instinct and how you sort of silence outside criticism and how you manage those, types of things and how you go from not wanting to be seen at all to being comfortable being out in the world. So I didn't learn them with this book, but I did learn them really deeply and in a pretty meaningful way, which is why they're in this book and in some of my other books as well.
Oh, I love that. Can you tell us what you're working on now? Like any details about what's next for you?
Exactly,
you've been busy, obviously.
Or at least, is there something?
Is there something
you can't talk
I'm working
about
on right now? One is an anthology with some other writers, and it's going to have a little bit of a thrillery kick. The contribution I'm working on has sort of a paranormal trip, but I've never done before, and I'm having a blast
fun.
Denise, I'm so excited
It'll be
for
announced
this for you
soon-ish, and then working on something else for Berkeley that I can't announce quite yet, but it's a story that I'm really excited to tell, and kind of some different tropes that I have and haven't played with, and a different setting that's very outside of what I kind of know and have said. And so I'll be excited to talk about it. I'm sorry I can't be more detailed. I'm not.
No, that's okay. We are always
okay.
prepared for that. For
I
those
think it'll
of you
drop soon, but I am excited about both of them. And right now it's in that early like idea stage, and my notes app is just full of random ideas that came to me while I was driving down I-35. And it's kind of fun to just be building something out that's brand new.
Allie loves the ideation phase.
That's my
Yes.
favorite phase.
Ideation is in my top 10 if you do Gallup strengths. And that's
Yeah.
just so much fun to everything can stick on the wall. And with a paranormal,
Yeah, everything
like I'm
feels
sort
really
of
exciting.
like, oh man, I'm not limited by an existing world. Like
I can create the rules.
I can do whatever
Yeah.
I want here. This is sort of awesome.
The power. Denise is power hungry.
I know. 27-year-olds can act however I want them to when they're ghosts.
That's right.
We were going to ask, but I feel like you kind of already answered this. Like when you return to writing fiction, how did you fit it in with work and parenting and other life responsibilities? Or did you really initially already have that quote in your mind about some balls are glass or plastic? Or did you kind of relearn that once you now added on author to all the other titles that you normally wear in your life?
I learned that along the way. I would say when I first started writing back in 2016, I had a newborn who was a good sleeper. I was lucky there. And my job was very busy. And so writing was something I did after my kid went to bed. It was after hours, and I didn't think anybody was going to read it. And it was truly just those first couple stories I wrote before I was ever published just flew out of my fingers. Like the fastest way to fall, I wrote 120,000 words in a month, which I can't. I don't.
Oh my
I
God.
wish I could still do that. I can't do that anymore. It was still when NaNoWriMo was a thing, and I had a community of writers, but I just loved the story so much. And so it was just, I wanted to do it on my lunch break. I wanted to do it while my husband was watching TV. Like I wanted to spend every weekend just doing this, and in part because I think it was an escape. It was something that was just for me. It wasn't for others, and that I could put all my energy into it. But again, I didn't think anybody was going to read it. And so
Joke's on you.
yeah, joke.
Oh no.
Here for it. It's at night. It's when I'm traveling. I used to every Sunday meet with a group of authors on Zoom for 4 or 5 hours on a Sunday, and we could just write together, and it was an accountability thing. And so I'm lucky to be a pretty fast drafter. But, sometimes it is a stretch. Like it's trying to squeeze everything in when it doesn't fit. And luckily I have a job that's fairly flexible. I get to control my time in some different ways. And I don't know, it just kind of comes together. And every time I start a new book, I'm like, I don't know how I do this. And I think that's pretty common for most authors. Like, do I even know how to write a book?
Are you pretty prescriptive with like an outline, or are you kind of like vibes based? You have like sort of your kind of core plot beats, or are you more character focused?
I, in my heart, am a pantser. I love nothing more than
love
sitting
this.
down
I do too, to be honest.
sitting down at a keyboard, and I have no idea where this is going to go, and I just write. That means you have a lot more work to do on editing. It's in some ways it's harder, but to me that is my happy place of writing. But I am traditionally published, and they won't pay you unless you have a plan. So I use my outline, and I have a combination of tools. So I'm a spreadsheet girly, which doesn't really go with pantsing, but I have a breakdown that mixes Save the Cat writes a novel, Gwen Hayes's book, Romancing the Beat.
The Romancing the Beat.
Romancing the Beat. And then K.M. Weiland does some great work on character arcs. And so I've kind of merged all three of those into sort of a structured outline. And then a friend of mine, she writes romance under Elise Wayland. Rivals to Lovers just came out of hers. It's great. But she was telling me about a craft book she'd read, and I don't remember the name of the book, but it was the idea of writing to islands, sort of, writing to your beats. I know this is going to happen. I know this is going to happen. I know this is going to happen. But not necessarily scripting out how you get from island to island, just knowing sort of your destination. And when I sit down to write, even if I have an outline, I tend to ignore it by chapter 3 and just write the outline.
The characters are doing what they do.
And I'm like, oh, shoot, I have to go back to the outline. If anything, that lack of planning is my prescriptive process. But I wish I was a hard outliner, because I love the concept of outlining. I love the structure of it. I love the science of it and the story beats. And I read craft books on it all the time. But for me, I just find so much more joy just sitting down and seeing
letting it come.
what comes.
I feel the exact same way, Denise.
We've talked about this on previous podcast episodes where we thought we would both be more outliners with our education and background, and we love structure. But sometimes it takes the fun out of it without at least letting yourself like get in that space of your daydreaming and like consciousness and you're flowing and you're just like, where should it go? You know?
Yeah. And when I'm starting a new book, part of the like ideation is me thinking like, this is the time I'm going to stick to an outline. And like you have that moment of hope that maybe you'll get there and then you don't, or I don't anyway.
This is going to be it. This is going to be it.
I'm gonna do
I
it
also
this
love
time.
that writing to island. I've never heard it
Described
articulated that way.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's what I do. I've got big rocks. These are the
beats.
things that I want to do, but how I get there, who's to say? So
Yeah, I that really resonated with me. I wish I could remember the name of the book, but I guess Google writing to islands, it'll probably pop up.
yeah, we'll have to find
or
it.
I'll ask Elise. But I like that concept because that is really how I function. I've got my major points and then we're coming back. And I write dual point of view. So I'm also pretty set that it's somebody's story. Like this is Willow's story. It's her journey of growth. But I also want both characters, if they have a point of view, to have their own development and challenges. And I don't want one character to only be in service of the other one. And so then you're almost, writing it dually, which is what I like about the Gwen Hayes Romancing the Beat, that it's got both sort of perspectives in there.
Agreed. Yeah. I really like Romancing the Beat. It makes more sense to my brain, I think, than Save the Cat. Sometimes Save the Cat, I'm trying to like cram my romance in there, and it's a little hard sometimes.
Foolproof Romance is another craft book I really like. I think it's a Kindle Unlimited, I think. But it's actually on romantic tension is where it centers, and how to build and break romantic tension. And I've presented on that. I think that's fascinating to study. Story Genius by Lisa Crone. I really like her kind of structure too. But again, it's not always meant for romance. And so the Romancing the Beat I used to use as a textbook in a class I taught about. I co-taught a seminar course with a friend called Moving Past Bodice Ripping Towards Shredding the Patriarchy. And we used romance as a way to explore like social justice and representation topics. We were using romance novels to teach that, but we also taught them about the genre and the significance of romance. And they read romance novels as part of the class. And we had them pitch their own romance novel at the end. And so they had to read Romancing the Beat as their textbook.
This is the coolest sounding
Can
class
I sign up
ever.
for this still? This sounds
can we
so
revive
good.
it just for a semester?
I'm in Iowa at a state university, so we were no longer teaching it. But the first year I taught it, I actually mentioned it on Twitter. It was spring of 2020. And I talked to my friends and I was like, well, what if we like did an online version sort of, and people could sign up for it? And we kind of thought maybe like 20 or 30 people might sign up. We had like 600 people sign up for it. So we did host it. We shared our lectures every week. We shared our reading list. Thursday night we hosted, this is old days, it was Twitter, but we just hosted a Twitter conversation and we'd post discussion questions and then sort of moderate the responses and then people could talk about it. It was fun. And the in-person class was great. We taught that for about 5 years.
Oh, wow.
And I loved that because it was usually about half people who already loved romance and half people who had never read a romance book in their life. And we had a pretty good gender balance. We had a lot of like engineers and scientists as well as like English majors and social scientists. And so you ended up like with people really seeing and getting romance for the first time and others getting like social justice and equity topics for the first time. So I loved it. It was a lot of fun.
Oh my gosh, that's so awesome. And like we always say that like that's one of the superpowers of the genre. You can work in a lot of important topics with a soft landing, right?
Oh, absolutely.
And I think that that's really unique. So,
well, and they paid us to teach the class, but we could use it for professional development. But it was COVID times and both of my colleague and I were like, well, we're not going anywhere. And we have professional development funding from other sources. So we used the money they gave us for the class to buy romance novels for the students. So we ended up with this huge library that we could use for class and to teach them, but that they could borrow books from. And my favorite thing in the world was the first time we sent the list to purchasing. We didn't keep it PG at all. Like and then they just gave us special permission to go buy them ourselves at the local bookstore.
You're like, we don't want to do this all for you.
Yeah,
How about you go do it?
Maybe you could just get them from dog-eared. And we're like, okay.
Twist my arm. I have to go to the bookstore.
Yeah. So I could talk all day about that class. It was a blast to teach. And it was with a dear friend of mine who I've known since we were in college together. And we just had a lot of fun. Our students were great.
Well, if you ever revive that, like on an online platform,
Please let us know.
please let us know, because I would absolutely sign up for that.
Sam will yell at us, Sam Cheetah. She tells us we can't do any more things because our plates are full, which is true. But like,
It is.
this would be the exception.
I would do this 100%.
Even if Sam was like, God damn it, you guys.
I just, like I said, we didn't, neither of us had time to do it, but it was just so much fun. And we had a bunch of authors and publishing professionals come in and speak to the class. And so like my agent came and spoke to them a bunch of times, and my editor, we had Olivia Waite, who is the romance columnist for New York Times, and Meryl Wilsner and Regina Black and all kinds of authors over the years
Oh
would
my
speak
God.
to them about whatever our topic was. So they got to really experience romance, I think.
That is so
Because Allie and I
cool.
are like leaning in and fangirling.
I know, I'm just like,
our
oh my
screens, for
God.
those of you who aren't watching, our jaws are open and we're just leaning in like,
It
Like,
truly
why wasn't
was
I
a lot
living
of
in
fun.
Iowa 6 years ago? Yeah.
It actually reminded me of a seminar class I took when I was in college. It was on intimate communication. And the way that this professor taught it was by having us watch rom-coms and then looking at these, not philosophical, these theoretical outlines of intimate communication and applying them to rom-coms. And I just remember thinking that was the coolest class, and like that you could use media to teach these constructs was so powerful. And I actually had the opportunity I led like a session with that professor years later when I was a professional, and I didn't remember him. I'd kind of forgotten the class, even though I remembered sort of what I learned. And it had been 15 years since I'd been in this man's class. And he said, "Hey, I remember you. You took my class in 2001 on this and this and this. And you talked."
oh my
And
gosh.
I was like, I barely remember I even took that class. And so actually this was a seminar for college students, new college students. And so somebody asked, like, "Do your professors actually know you?" And I was like, "Well, let me tell you a story."
Yes, some do.
This guy remembered this wallflower student from 10 years ago.
15 years ago.
Years ago, yeah. Anyway, a tangent, but that was a fun class.
Oh, but such a good tangent.
Such a good
We're here for the
tangent.
tangents.
That's what this podcast is about. Like, where does the,
Yes.
we have a
There's an
structure,
intersect.
much like our writing outlines. We have an idea, but the magic happens in the margins,
Tangentially
So-
yours.
Yeah, exactly. I wanted to ask, what's some advice that you have for like aspiring authors and writers that you feel like is underrated?
I don't know if this is underrated exactly, but I framed it this way, and this to me is the best way to think of it. And I think this is good life advice too. And that is to remember consistently and constantly, and write it down and keep it on your computer, that the only thing a first draft has to do is exist. And in so many things of our life, like perfection is a myth. I mean, if you're a brain surgeon, like, try to get it good the first time. But like generally, a first draft is just that, and we get to edit, and we get to go back, and we get to get better, and we get to improve. And I think when you're a new writer, there's sort of this paralysis some folks get into where I can't show it to anybody until it's perfect. And I can't try to publish it until it's perfect. And you'll never get to perfect because it doesn't exist. My first book did really well, How to Fail at Flirting. It's probably still my most read book. It went through all this editing. It's been out in the world for 6 years. And if I could edit it 17 more times, I could probably get it close to perfect. Like, it's out there in the world, and at some point you just have to let it go if you're creating something. But I do think that kind of travels over to life for a lot of things, just that permission to grow and to improve. And ask any published author who's written a lot of books, their first drafts are filled with like things in brackets that are like, does this exist? Or
Later.
how many hands and penises did I give this person? Fix it later. Okay.
Even if it's a monster romance, right? Like, because that could really change things.
Yeah, I write contemporary, so that's usually going to be an issue, but
I
Yeah.
have to keep the count the same.
I got to keep the count. It's got to be the same amount of penises going in that came out.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that is my general advice to folks. And I think the business of publishing, I probably have different advice, but in terms of just writing, it's give yourself permission to be messy and to show people something messy, because that's how we get better. When I first started, I was on a platform called Scribophile. I'm not sure if Scribophile still exists or not, but it was phenomenal. And it was just open platform. I don't even think I had a membership, and I think it would be challenging now with AI, but you got on and you got points to post your work by editing, like critiquing the work of others. And it was just this wonderfully supportive community. And I learned so much about writing from these people I didn't know. And I got to read all these great stories and give my perspective and give ideas. But then you would just post like, you got points, so you could post a chapter, and then you could put it out wide, or you could put it to a certain group of people or like your friends or whatever. But anyway, like I learned so much about writing and getting critique and giving critique on that platform. And as an academic, I thought I knew all about that, and it was so different. And so if you can find those kinds of spaces, I think that's really important too. Because that also made me feel more confident in my writing sometimes, that I was like, oh gosh, I can't show this to anybody. I don't know what I'm doing. And then I'd read somebody else's and I'm like, oh, no, I kind of know what I'm doing.
I kind of know am I good at it?
I do kind of know.
I think I am.
But I miss that platform in a lot of ways. Again, I don't know if it still exists, and I think it would be challenging with the world we're in now. But
yeah,
in 2016, 2017, 2018, and that was my refuge. I probably spent more time there than on any social media platform.
Yeah. That's a really cool concept. Yeah. And I think that's like also just like writing groups are super important, and feedback. And if your own work is not being critiqued, you learn by critiquing others or seeing someone else critique someone else's work. Like there's just so much that you can learn at all points of that interaction.
Oh, absolutely. And I think it also helps you define sort of who you are. I remember early on someone was critiquing How to Fail at Flirting, and in that one the main character is a survivor of an abusive relationship. There's some racial things, there's some workplace things, there's some academia things. There's a lot going on that to me felt very natural and cohesive. And one of the critiques was, there's too many issues, there's too many social issues here. You can't address all of this. And I remember just saying, okay, thanks for the feedback, and ignoring it, because I know as a writer that we live complicated intersectional lives, and you absolutely can tackle in your book multiple social issues because we live multiply socially issued lives. That's a bastardization of an Audre Lorde quote, but that sort of helped me define who I am as a writer too. That I was like, no, that's not advice I'm going to take. Like, make my character.
You don't have to take all advice.
Maybe they're going to be fat and black, and maybe they're dealing with money issues, and maybe they're dealing with identity issues or whatever, because that's what we all do.
That's real life. Right. We can't decide that we just don't want to deal with those, intersections of social issues that
fine. But that just really sort of helped me frame like, oh no, that's who I am as a writer. That's who I am as a human. Like, that's what I'm going to bring up. I also learned that I don't know how to use a comma, which despite having a PhD and writing 11 books, my copy editor would easily tell you that I still don't know how to use a comma. So I've just given up on that.
I think the more I think about how to use a comma, the less I know.
Exactly. And then I second guess.
I just use vibes and I throw it in there if I feel like I need it, and it may or may not need to be there.
And dash, or I'm like, no, this could just be its own sentence. So we have beautiful, wonderful, talented copy editors.
I was just going to say, that's not your job right now, or like you said, the first draft needs to get done. That's a problem for me tomorrow. Yeah. Tomorrow I'll be upset that I left it for tomorrow, but right now I don't need to worry about that.
My job honestly, is not
my favorite part, and I think this will vibe for you all as if you like spreadsheets. But when Berkeley, when they do your copy editing, when you get to the copy editing phase, they do the copy editing, but they send you like your copy editing Bible. And in it is like, it has just a theme at the top that's basically like, here's the things you clearly don't understand. Let me explain them to you in a very nice, beautiful way. But then it also lists like all the unique words you have. It lists every setting that you have. It lists all the characters and how they're described, like minute things. Like you listed this route on the bus, but it got changed to this route. And those kinds of things, like this amazing level of detail. And I pore over those. I think they are endlessly fascinating to just read through and just look at all that level of detail.
All the data points, like, you wrote it, but like when you get to see it all and like you can like consume it in one sitting. Oh yeah, I think I'd be like staring at it.
Yeah. Oh, and it's fun. And that when they list all the characters, they describe how you describe them to make sure there's consistency. But if you give them a nickname, or in some book I wrote, some side character calls the hero Captain America Wondercock. And so I don't even remember what book it was. It was something like that though. And so that's written in my little copy editor Bible. And
you have Wondercock forever in your spreadsheet for that book to live forever.
Yeah,
I love
I
truly,
I don't remember what book it was.
And then somebody at Berkeley, their job was to data entry Wondercock in your spreadsheet for you. Like on a random Tuesday at 9:30, getting a second cup of coffee, coming back to their desk, and then Wondercock.
And I hope that they found joy in it. I don't even remember what book it was in, but anyway, it doesn't matter. But that is my favorite part of the process. And second to that is when I get the audiobook. I am a huge audio fan. That's how I do most of my reading. And
Same.
Here too.
I've had the same producer for all of my audiobooks with Penguin. And I think Karen kind of trusts my narrator judgment anymore. So she asked me on the front end who I'd like to have. So when I'm writing the book, I can kind of have that in mind. And that first time they send me the file, I'm just
you get chills?
Like, I find any excuse to drive because that's where I do my audio listening.
Yeah.
So that I can listen. And that is actually the only way I ever reread my books is through audio, because there's just enough distance with the narrator that I can sort of forget that I wrote it and I can just kind of enjoy the story. And so this one, the redo list is Teddy Hamilton and January Lavoie. They did one of my other ones.
Top tier.
Do You Take This Man? They're incredible. But collectively, I think this is the 6th or 7th of mine that Teddy has done and the 5th or 6th that January has done. So they've both done a lot of my books alone together with other narrators. Anyway, but I love audiobooks. I think there is so much talent there that it is real to me.
I talked to some girlfriends of mine who aren't on the audio train yet. And I know everybody's brain works differently. Yeah. So I have one that's like, I just can't consume knowledge that way. I'm like, that's fine. But I'm like, you guys, you know how you favorite actors? I have favorite audiobook narrators.
Yes.
That like they have such performance in their narration and acting and voice and inflection that like I may not have heard of the book, but if I see it's a narrator and I read a description and it like at all tickles my fancy, I'm like in the cart.
Oh, I have authors I've never heard of before because
I'm like, ooh, yeah.
I actually did that a few days ago when I was in LA. I love Shane East. I think he is a delightful human and has
Shane East
voice.
is great.
I may or may not have been a member of the Shaniacs Facebook group.
Yes, girl.
I love his performance. He's so talented.
So
and
good.
I got to hug him once and his voice touched my face.
In real life?
And I was just like, I just need to hear you like in person, and you're a delightful human. But so talented. January, I adore. I'll actually have brunch with her in a couple of days when I'm in Atlanta. And I just think she's the bee's knees too. And so anyway, I fangirl over narrators pretty hard, but I definitely will just feel like I want to hear this voice in my ear, and I'll go find a book that they narrated, not knowing anything about the author. And I hope some people stumble on the redo list like that, because I just think that's a lovely way to find books.
They totally will. Like Teddy has such a following, and rightfully so. He's so good.
And I've never met him in person, but he seems lovely, and someday I'm sure I will. But
yeah. I love that. I love that you're an audiobook fangirl, because like we absolutely are here too. And we text each other about like, oh my God, like you need to listen to this audio. It's so good. Because that's the only way that I consume, like that's the only way that I'm really able to read. I just can't sit down and read.
Yeah, it's like juggling the balls. Like I always talk about like you can do it while you're doing laundry, washing dishes, driving, where like you can't physically read a book while doing those things.
Yeah, and I commute every day. So I'm like, I've got 45 minutes each way in the car, and and I listen to it. My students have trained me to listen to it a little faster, so I can read books pretty quickly now. And
I know.
That's the real question, Denise. At what speed on average do you listen to? I know each narrator is a little different, but usually each person lives between a couple points. What do you think you listen to on average?
I used to be a religious 1.2 listener, but now I probably listen to 1.7 to 2. If I am not enjoying the book and I just need to get through it, like for book club or something, I can go up to 3 if there's not a heavy accent, like for my ear.
Yeah.
And like 2.25, kind of slower narration. I've just sort of trained my brain. But I used to remember looking at my students and being like, 1.5, what's wrong with you? And then you just sort of...
When you said 1.2, in my mind, I'm envisioning this book was written by... Denise
I know
Williams.
Well, because I listen to audiobooks with my son. Like he is a big reader, but we always pick a YA or a middle grade series and we listen to it in the car together. And so with him, I usually listen about 1.5, but when my husband listens, he listens at 1. And so I was in the car yesterday and I was like, is this only at 1 times speed? He's like, yeah, that's how it's supposed to be listened to. And I'm like,
again, you're like waiting for them to chew the words, you know?
Because you just,
my sister is like, definitely like a audio performance purist. So it's like one time speed. You are receiving, the performance that you are supposed to receive by the voice actor, very, very much like that. And I'm over here and I'm like, yeah, so that's so great. But like my brain functions at 2 to 2.5, depending on the accent, 1.8 if it's a British accent, because I can't keep up that fast if it's 2 times. But, and there's definitely people that I wish that I could just like tap their foreheads and have them go on 2 times speed too.
Well, I got to record the author's note for The Fastest Way to Fall. And so they got me in a studio here in Des Moines, and the producer was
fun.
over Zoom.
That's so cool.
And it probably only took like 10 minutes to record. I probably took 70 selfies while I was doing it. But
Absolutely.
the advice
Obviously
they kept
valid.
saying is I needed to slow down. And so I was like, oh, okay, like that kind of makes sense maybe from an editing perspective, or like, I don't know. But anyway, it was interesting. I think audio is amazing. And like, I have just so much awe of narrators. Doing that novella project was really fun because there's 3 novellas in Love and Other Flight Delays, and there's 6 different narrators. So each story had its own couple, and that was great because I got to pull all these voices into one project that I love. So it's Teddy Hamilton's in there, Shanice, January LaVoy.
Talk about your narrator id list. You're like, these are my favorite narrators.
Kobe Diem, Denise Williams, Sean, Angel Peen. So like just narrators I love, and they all got to be in this one project, and so that's kind of fun.
That's incredible. Oh my gosh. Well, this was like the most delightful conversation. You gave us
so much for having me.
This was so fun. And I loved the redo list. I loved all of these like little craft nuggets and geeking out about audiobooks. Like it's just such a great time. Where can we find you on the internet and elsewhere?
Yeah. Well, I'll probably be in the Denver airport, as the odds are pretty good. Okay. Denver O'Hare, if you see me, say hi. But I'm at Nick Will Writes on Instagram, and that is where I'm most active. I'm also on Threads. I was on TikTok, but I just deleted my profile, so not there anymore. You'll have to find your own dog videos. And then author Denise Williams on Facebook, where again, I'm not as active, but I'm around. My website is denisewilliamswrites.com. And I think I've got some fun stuff on there. I make puzzles for my book covers a lot for jigsawexplorer.com.
Cool.
Which I can send you the link to the redo list one if you want to put it in show notes. It's free to do, and I just love that website.
Yes, please do.
Yes, please.
It's my happy place to do the puzzles, so I like making my book covers into them, and it's kind of challenging, actually. So I've got some of that stuff and some cocktail recipes. And I also have content notes and heat level for all of my books on there. Sometimes it's in the book, but there's just like a chart. So if folks want to see, because I do touch on some heavy topics in my book sometimes. So if folks are thinking like, oh, I want to read that, but I want to check it out, there's a guide on my website that's got all of them in one place.
Dare you say a spreadsheet that has all the information in one place?
It does have cells. So yeah.
Wow.
Say less, we're there.
You can't see it very well, but in the background here is a little stuffed computer that says "Freak in the Sheets." And when I was out in Las Vegas a few months ago, it was the Microsoft Excel World Championships. And I think I'd seen it on TikTok or something, and then it was in my hotel. And so I'm in the elevator, and this guy had like a badge on, and I was like, oh my God, are you here for the Excel World Championships? And I don't know that this man has ever been fangirled over in his life. And
I bet he was like so flummoxed.
He was like, yeah. And then all the other people in the elevator were like, what's that? So like I was in my like geeky super heaven of being surrounded by all these Excel people. That's not why I was there, but
also, can you imagine how you probably made this person's day that he was like, I'm sorry, you know what that is? And you're like excited.
It was actually a really big deal. Like I ran into a Washington Post sports reporter who was there writing about it, and we just had a little chat at the Starbucks in the lobby.
Denise, you have your finger on the pulse. Like
you do.
Just being like all up in there.
You are.
So now I really want to write a romance that's set at the Microsoft Excel World Championships.
Oh my God.
Who would the main character be participating? Would they be rivals? Or oh my God,
oh gosh, it could be rivals to lovers. Like I'm just thinking of all the puns you could put that are like concatenate me.
And I feel like that small percentage of people are at that level. Like they all would kind of know each other, so they could be enemies, right? Like you know of them, or you've met them at past tournaments and stuff.
I almost sort of love making it like fans. Like that's somehow quite a bit more nerdy. You are just like a roadie for the Excel tournament.
They just keep showing up.
Or it could be like a journalist, like, you know, like a reporter who's like, I've been
or somebody
relegated
who's there in the hotel for, you know, like those big hotels, there's multiple conferences going on. So it could be like the rodeo was there at the same time as the Excel World Championship. I don't know that I'm equipped to write a rodeo story, but there's options here.
Yeah. Maybe the reporters, like I was supposed to be, you know, I thought I was going to be a sports writer and write about, you know, the NFL, but here I am at the Excel World Championships, you know, because she pissed off her boss or something.
Yeah, I don't know. There's something there. I don't know what it is, and it would be pretty niche, but
Yeah.
that existed, I just thought was very cool, and that it was a thing I just had never heard of. And then, yeah, I hope I made that guy's day. He made mine.
I think you did.
This story is
I don't
making my
think-
day. So the gift is still given.
I don't, yeah. Denise, are you doing any other events or any conferences or anything upcoming this year?
Yeah, so in just a couple days, so probably before this airs, I'll be at Love Y'all in Atlanta. And this will be my third
Fantastic.
time going to Love Y'all. And if folks are listening and they're thinking about maybe going in a future year, it is so wonderful. It's a smaller romance con, but it's full. Like, there's great authors, there's a lot of people, but it's very chill. It's run by 4 independent bookstores. And I can't say enough wonderful things about this romance con. That and Steamy Lit were always my very favorites to go to. And then after that, I don't have any more. There's one more that I'll be at, but I don't think I can share it yet. But that'll be coming up. So follow me on socials and I'll post about it soon. Otherwise, I've got a lot of events with great bookstores that I'm excited about. In North Carolina, I'll be at a novel romance in Louisville. And I just got back from Anaheim, and then hoping to do a few more around Iowa and the Midwest.
And as someone who has recently been to one of her events at a local bookstore, it is delightful and wonderful. It was equal parts informative, deep, and then we were rolling with laughter. Like the hour, we went longer than an hour. It was so fun. So if you're at all think you're interested and close by, you definitely need to hit those up.
We usually have some fun. And I think live author events are just a blast for romance anyway, because most of us are pretty irreverent and lack filter. And that usually, I think, is a lot of fun.
All right. Should we, as we always do, we end with our happy, we got to do our happy endings, because not only do our characters, but everybody deserves a happy ending.
That's right.
Okay. Should we do another sandwich? Allie, do you want to go first?
Sure. Mine is going to be something very small, but I just bought one of my favorite tea brands. I just bought a bunch of tea. Amber actually turned me onto this tea brand called Bird and Blend. It's from the UK and it's a B Corp and it's really great. I got some strawberry Nutella pancakes tea, which I had last year in like a sample, and it is delicious. I got a Victoria sponge cake tea, which is kind of like a raspberry black tea that I love. And what else did I get? Oh, a Devon cream, which is a strawberry cream tea. And they're all very good. So I am really excited for some like spring flavored teas, because I've been really heavy into like the mulling warm spices, which serves me in the winter. But you know, our longest days are behind us now, and it's light at 5:30. Thank God. So I'm excited for some of these new teas that I'm getting sent.
Oh, that sounds so good. I have recently gotten into watching The Pitt. Not recently. I love this show. And on the last episode, there was this deeply sexy moment of like competence porn. Noah Wiley, who for me I always liked Noah Wiley, but he's never been somebody I was like gaga over. But
yeah, like you didn't see him and immediately go panty dropper.
This woman is ill. She's got a kind of bacteria on her leg, and she's on the phone with her boss begging to not be fired. She's a server. And so, please don't fire me, like I'm in the hospital, and like begging her boss. And initially the boss wanted to talk to the doctors, and they were kind of like, oh, we're a little busy right now. And so she's pleading on the phone with her boss, and then Noah Wiley's character takes the phone from her and says, I am so-and-so, I'm the chief of emergency medicine, and if you fire her, she will sue you, and I will testify on her behalf, and then hangs up on this man. And it's just like Jess Lee, who's at Literary Intersections on Instagram and Threads, and I were talking about this, and it was just such a moment of like power and confidence, but also just like someone who's going to take care of you as a doctor, but maybe would bring that into a relationship. I don't know. I love the show. I think it's phenomenal. But that moment has just brought me so much joy the last week since it aired last Thursday.
Oh, that's fantastic.
And when it sticks with you for so long and you're thinking about it more and more, you know it was like really good.
Yeah. If you haven't watched the show, just trust. It is so good.
I think I've seen it advertised, like on the banner on whatever streaming service it is right now.
It has sort of the vibes of ER, but it's a different show. It's in a modern emergency room. It is very fast paced. So it's like every episode is 1 hour of a shift in this emergency department in Pittsburgh.
Yeah. It's everybody has said to me, oh, Allie, like, have you seen The Pitt? Oh my God. It's like actually pretty medically accurate. And I was like, it would love to, but I have a lot of work that is at work, and I want to come home and I want to experience nonsense.
Totally fair. I have heard from other medical folks that it's pretty like,
yeah, it's pretty
spot on in terms of medicine, but also the culture of the hospital and the issues. But I don't come home and watch movies or videos about universities either. So
Yeah,
I
that's
get it.
fair.
I get it.
I love it. This week, I'm grateful for all the wonderful female friendships in my life, but I wanted to highlight one in particular. My bestie, Katie, who is currently living with Lachlan and I while she house hunts, and then to help around while Patrick is deployed. So today she went and picked up Lachlan after daycare, and they're having one of their special little Lachlan Katie play dates so that I could record this podcast. So it's just so hard to even put into words how relieved I feel to have someone who's not only able to watch Lachlan, but he is like so comfortable with her. Like she's one of the main adults in his life right now. And it's just really special to see their relationship grow. And when she's picked him up from school a couple times, his little friends will be all excited because like, ooh, new adult. And he'll go, my Auntie Katie. Like he's very protective, like my Auntie Katie. And it's so adorable. And her and I kind of joke that we're wives because like we're living together. So we help each other emotionally and then also like do stuff around the house. And so our tagline lately is like, everyone should get a wife. It's really kind of great. So I wanted to say thank you to my bestie, Auntie Katie, wife extraordinaire. Thank you so much for supporting us during this hard time because it's hard with Patrick being deployed and being in this kind of in-between phase when Lachlan's so little. So that's my happy ending.
That's lovely.
Thank you, Katie, for everything that you do. Well, thank you everyone so much for being here. And Denise, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us today. And you can find us, Smut and Sensibility, on Instagram, TikTok. We are, and YouTube at Smut and Sensibility Pod. We are also on Blue Sky, and we do also have a newsletter, which we'll link down below. And as Denise mentioned, she is on most platforms, and we will also link her info below as well as her new release, The Redo List. And you should definitely pick it up. You will not regret it. Amber, would you like to sign us off?
I would. Thanks again, everyone, for listening. And as always, stay smutty and go in pursuit of your happily ever after. Bye, guys.
Bye.